Donald Trump has been accused of heinous crimes in the latest release of the Epstein Files by the Department of Justice. But his crimes only barely scratch the surface of what's in these files because his entire inner circle, his cabinet, his friends, his donors, his political advisors are infected by their ties and relationships and their actions with Jeffrey Epstein. Let's dive in and talk about how Donald Trump just isn't protecting himself in this cover-up. He's also protecting everybody in his orbit. Let's start by exposing Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, who is a billionaire who has been abusing his position for the better part of the last year. In 2005, he claims he cut ties with Jeffrey Epstein. Here he is bragging about it. And then on the flip side, I'll show you from the files how he's been lying.
He opens the doors and there's a massage table in the middle of the room. And candles all around and stuff. So I ask very insightful, cutting questions. I say to him, massage table in the middle of your house? How often you have a massage? And he says, every day. And then he gets weirdly close to me. And he says, and the right kind of massage.
Ooh.
Now my wife is standing here. So she looks at me and I look at her and we say, I'm sorry, we have to go. And we left. And in the 6 or 8 steps it takes to get from his house to my house, my wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again. Really? So I was never in the room with him socially, for business, or for even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross. Oh. And so I look back at it as a gift.
Yes.
He gave me a gift.
Yes.
Of avoid. And so, yeah, that's my story. A one and absolutely done.
There you go. A one and absolutely done. There must be nothing more to the story. Can't find anything there. He cut off ties. He did the right thing, right? Nope. Because with this administration, every single member is lying about everything all the time, and we should never trust anything that these people say. Here, my friends, is an email that was released as part of the files yesterday where Howard Lutnick is emailing with Jeffrey Epstein about having lunch at St. Bart's. So clearly, and by the way, this is from 2012. So Howard Lutnick claimed that in 2005, he had that creepy encounter with Jeffrey Epstein and his wife, and they agreed that they would never see him again, that they would never spend time with him, they wouldn't do business with him, nothing. And here he is in 2012, planning a lunch with Jeffrey Epstein. So it begs the question, if he was lying about that story, what else is he lying about? And who else is infected with this rot? We've also got Elon Musk is all over these files too. And he is a big part of the reason that Donald Trump was able to win. When the Epstein Files scandal just was starting to brew in the middle of the year, Elon Musk was talking about how he refused to go to Epstein's island. But there are emails, and I showed this to you yesterday in my YouTube, where he was asking, what day/night should I be there so that I can get to the wildest party on your island? Wildest party. Now, he says that he refused to go, but that's actually not the reason that he went. Because from Fred Lambert here's an email right here. I'll pull it up for you to see. The event was canceled. So Elon Musk said, I had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I didn't go to the party. I wasn't on the island. I refused to go. There he is being disinvited from a party that he was fully intending to go back to. They're coordinating when he's going to fly back in that email thread. And they lied. So Howard Lutnick lied. Elon Musk lied. Steve Bannon's all over this. The Fed chair nominee's all over this. And Donald Trump and Pam Bondi and the rest of them have been covering this up because they're not just protecting Donald Trump. They're protecting a class of wealthy and powerful individuals who believe that they are above the law, who believe that they are above accountability, that they can prey on little girls, that they can prey on boys, that they can traffic them and abuse them and get away with it. And so far, they are getting away with it, except the public is finally getting a chance to see some of it. And I don't believe that Donald Trump's DOJ is actually going to prosecute. But the statute of limitations is longer than a lot of these people realize that it is. And hopefully, we can get some justice on this. And I want to make another point too, because a lot of people make this out to be a partisan issue. And obviously I'm a Democratic strategist, so I'm a partisan guy. I want Democrats to win in 2026. I want to elect a Democratic president in 2028. But I do not believe that the Epstein Files is a partisan issue. It's not good for Democrats or bad for Republicans. It's bad for the country. This is a disgusting abuse of power and authority. This is something that unravels the fabric of what it means to be an American, because if we don't stand up and say that this shit is wrong, Democrat, Republican, and everybody in between, then we don't really have a country anymore. We don't actually have a rule of law anymore. Well, also included in here is a man by the name of Kevin Warsh. And you may have seen his name in the news recently because yesterday morning he was announced as Donald Trump's pick for Fed chair. And here he is in the Epstein emails, in the Epstein files, being invited to a private dinner party in St. Bart's. And a lot of other powerful and important people are there, and they made sure Ghislaine Maxwell's name is on the list too. This is an Epstein-funded party. And who knows what he did there? I don't know what he did there, and I want to be careful about that because there were lots of people who spent time around him. But at a bare minimum, we're getting a broader picture here. Donald Trump has been accused of forcing himself and attacking multiple women who are victims of being sexually trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. The DOJ seems disinterested in investigating or figuring out if any of them are credible or not. And meanwhile, you see his Commerce Secretary, and now you see his Fed chair. And again, it doesn't stop there. Let's talk about his political advisors. Steve Bannon, one of Donald Trump's biggest campaign advisors, basically someone who is considered the founder of the MAGA movement, is repeatedly seen in these Epstein files exchanging texts and emails with Jeffrey Epstein about campaign strategy. In this text exchange, Jeffrey Epstein is giving Steve Bannon advice on how to talk about Trump's relationship with Epstein. This is just a few months before Epstein allegedly offed himself. And here they are, over here, exchanging a bunch of texts as well, talking and laughing and commiserating about different strategies that they have to help support everyone's favorite president, Donald J. Trump. So you're building and seeing that case. Donald Trump is implicated in the Epstein files. They've been engaged in this cover-up. His cabinet members are in these files. His Fed chair's in these files. And his greatest campaign advocate, his closest advisor, some would say, are in these files. But wait, there's more, because it isn't just Steve Bannon. Because I don't want you to think I'm just picking on the Republicans here. There's plenty of Democrats here. Here's an example. This is an email between Barack Obama's White House counsel, who's giving Jeffrey Epstein advice on how to answer questions about Donald Trump having sex with a girl at his house. Now, again, that's an allegation, but he's helping it message it. So we have a Democratic political operative, somebody who worked in the Obama White House, who's helping Jeffrey Epstein and helping Donald Trump. Why? And we know that Bill Clinton is in there and he needs to testify and answer questions. So does Trump. By the way, it's not fair for just Bill Clinton to testify and not Trump. We know that Bill Gates is in there. We know that there are other prominent Democrats in there. We have to root out and hold everybody accountable who is in these files. Everybody. If I have a client in these files, I will fire them. If I had a staff member on these files, I would fire them. If I had a relationship with somebody who was in these files, I would not want that relationship. Because for the betterment of this country, of this party, we have to run these people out of office. We have to run them out of polite society. And every single one of them, to the extent that they can, as bungled as this investigation has been by Pam Bondi and the DOJ, we have to hold them accountable to the fullest extent of the law. It's not a party issue. It's just like the financial crisis in 2008. People need to be held accountable. We have to show the American people that the wealthy and the powerful who abuse our system, who abuse little girls and little kids, are held to the same standard as the rest of us. That if you break the law, you're going to be investigated, you're going to be prosecuted, and you're going to be found guilty, and you're going to go to jail. And you can't just throw money at Donald Trump to get out of it. You can't expect the federal government to bail you out of it. And in 2008 and 2009, one of the biggest sins I've seen in my political career was not prosecuting people after the Wall Street crash. The government bailed them out. And nobody went to prison while tens of millions of people had their lives ruined. And that makes people cold. It makes them disconnected from our politics. It makes them distrustful of everything that's going on, the belief that they can succeed, that the government is trying to help them. No wonder people turn to a man like Trump because of that. And we can't let it happen again. We cannot let it happen again. And I want to do the same thing I did yesterday and center the ending of this video on the survivors who have been courageous and brave in speaking up and sharing their stories and demanding justice and accountability from their abusers. They have to relive this trauma every single day, knowing that their government doesn't care about them. So there's a statement that a series of Epstein survivors released jointly, and I want to read you just a little bit of it to give you a sense of how they're feeling right now. Quote, "This latest release of Jeffrey Epstein files is being sold as transparency, but what it actually does is expose survivors. Survivors are having their names and identifying information exposed, while the men who abused us remain hidden and protected. That is outrageous. As survivors, we should never be the ones named, scrutinized, and re-traumatized, while Epstein's enablers continue to benefit from secrecy. This is a betrayal of the very people this process is supposed to serve. And I think that is very eloquently and very well said. Because these survivors have not gotten a lick of justice. They have had to go through trauma that no human being should have to experience. And then they have to relive it and overcome it every single day, with people attacking them on the internet, with MAGA politicians targeting them and trying to expose their personal information, all to protect a president who is very likely engaged in these crimes, who is certainly implicated in these files, and who, alongside Attorney General Pam Bondi and many others in this administration, have covered up the Epstein files to protect themselves and their friends. And in this video, we've shown you how deep this rot goes. It's not just Donald Trump. It's his cabinet. It's his campaign officials. It's his friends. It's his donors. This rot is everywhere, and it's Democrat and Republican. And the end game here has to be the release of the full, unredacted Epstein files and flight logs. It has to be naming every single person who is accused of abusing someone in here, someone who is cavorting with who is essentially the nation's most famous pedo, Jeffrey Epstein. That has to happen. And we can do it while protecting the victims. And then when the public has that information, we need a Department of Justice and a government that's going to prosecute these people, up to and including the President of the United States. This is one of the most important scandals in the history of America. The scale and the number of people who were trafficked and abused is unbelievable. 1,000 little girls, 1,000 little boys, some of whom have lost their lives, all of whom will never be the same again. And if this country doesn't stand up and say this is wrong and hold the rich and the powerful accountable for their crimes, I don't believe we have a country anymore. I really don't. But I'm still optimistic that we can get some semblance of justice for these survivors, because their bravery, they deserve to be commended, and they damn sure deserve better than the way they've been treated by their government. And if you agree, I would appreciate if you do me a favor, like and share this message with your friends so other people get a chance to learn the truth here. Please hit the bell so that you get updated about new videos. And please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Tell me your reaction to this. Tell me how you're just holding up right now, because this has been a terrible week across the board. And just please take time this weekend and get some rest. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you.